You're tuned in to the Big Smoke Chronicle podcast, where we get to interview seasoned professionals in finance, fintech, and entrepreneurship. We go beyond the surface to bring you the experiences, lessons, and skills that matter most in today's world of work. So, let's dive in. Hello and welcome back to the Big Smoke Chronicle podcast, where we get to interview business leaders to have honest conversations that will help Gen Z, get them inspired, get them motivated in the world of work. And I am particularly excited because we have the wonderful Jo Rice here. Round of applause. Jo, it's so good that you're here. I'm so excited to be interviewing you. And there's so much we want to talk about today. But for a bit of context of Jo and what she's done and what she's doing now, Jo, you've helped co-found and lead a charity for 21 years, now called Spear. It rebranded. It was called Resurgo initially, but now it's called Spear. And that has helped over 9,000 young people step into employability. So real impact. And now, recently you stepped down from your role as CEO and now you do more consulting work. And it's so funny, we were chatting on the way here about all the different companies that you're just being exposed to. And you go in, the different sectors from luxury to private equity to Screwfix to even organizational consulting company called the Table Group. And you go in and you speak on something called organizational health, which we'll get onto later.
Great.
But I thought it would be great to start with, those 21 years that you spent building up Spear. But for those listening who don't know what that charity is and what you guys do or what they still do now, can you help describe what the charity do?
Yeah. So Spear is a coaching program. So the initial idea was I trained as an executive coach. Could executive coaching as a methodology serve young people who would normally have no exposure to coaching in helping them to get into work and overcome the barriers they have to work? So Spear works with 16 to 24-year-olds unemployed young people who face multiple barriers to work. So things like a criminal record or growing up in care or dropping out of school and they go through a 6-week program and come in to be coached every day by a team of amazing coaches. And really it's about helping them get their mindset right for work. And it's built on the premise that the real thing holding young people back from getting jobs is not so much like it's quite easy to get a job. Keeping a job is quite a challenge. And the main thing that is challenging young people is their ability to build strong relationships. And so a lot of Spear is actually about how do you build relationships in the workplace and how do you, and for life actually. Yeah. And how do you present yourself in a way that is authentic and demonstrates what contribution you've got to make in the world. And how do you know what that is? Because fundamentally, understanding that you've got a contribution to make and that people will value you actually is the thing that we most want people to walk away from Spear with. Yeah.
And that is so important, especially now more than ever with the employability rates just going down. The Financial Times released an episode last week talking all about this. And they said there's been a 20% dip in employability since 2021, which is, a huge number. And even being at university and stepping out of university, I'm sure so many young people look at that number and feel incredibly discouraged. But what piece of advice would you give that young person who feels discouraged about employability and gaining more skills? What can they do now to make themselves more employable instead of waiting for the perfect moment?
Yeah. I think some of it is there's so many. I know. Question.
I know.
What are the key things? I think the key message I would say is, I think the perceived wisdom is the way you get a job is you look for an advert and then you fire off a CV and really hope for an answer. And all of the media reports last year were testifying to the fact that that just doesn't work. And it particularly doesn't work in a time of automated systems for recruitment, because unless you've got the exact words to get through the filter. So there's a game being played in that, which is almost impossible to work unless your job becomes working that system. But there's some amazing statistic, like 85% of jobs never get advertised, and only 15% of the market are looking outside of the advertised world.
Yeah.
And so actually, I think so much of it is, the technical term would be building your network, but actually it's just a case of calling everyone you know and everyone's mum or dad that you know and saying, can I talk to you about what you do? There's a really, really good book called Designing Your Life, which is written by two guys, Bill Burnett and Dave Evans. And Dave is he actually invented the mouse. So he worked with Steve Jobs and Steve Wozniak. He's a design professor at Stanford, but he's applied design principles to how you think about planning your life.
Interesting.
And I'd say read that book, but he would say work out roughly what you think you might want to do, and then just go meet people and say, tell me what it's like to work in this industry. And by the time you've met the 10th person, you'll be really knowledgeable. And the chances are when they go back to the office and they say, gosh, we really need someone to look at this, they'll go, I know someone.
Yeah.
And that is the way I would do it.
Good old fashioned networking.
Just good old fashioned networking is the way to do it. And obviously access to those networks is a real issue. And that's partly what we were trying to help young people who have no access to networks achieve through Spear.
Yeah. And just talking to people.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's really helpful. And on the topic of charities, this is quite a big question, but how do you know if a charity is delivering like what they promise? Like, are there a few things that you can tell? Because if you're like giving to a charity and you're supporting a charity, how do you know like what's going on behind the scenes? And yeah.
Oh, it's a big question. It's a big question. Well, it's a really important question actually, because the thing to remember about charities, so businesses, you have one customer. So you produce something, you say, would you like this? The customer says, yes, I will pay you for it. And there's a transaction. With charities, there are two customers. There are the people who fund the charity, and then there are the people who benefit from it. And they're two totally different populations. The thing you've got to know about charities is that generally you're good at communicating with either one or the other. So the charities that are really good at communicating with donors may well not be that good at communicating with their beneficiaries.
Interesting.
Whereas the ones who are really good at dealing with their beneficiaries sometimes aren't that good at communicating with their donors, because you basically end up prioritizing one or the other. And that makes it really complicated as a donor to know who to give to, because the really shiny light people aren't always the best. So I'm always looking for impact data, and impact data is not how many people have you put through a program. The impact data is what outcome are you trying to get to, and what proportion of the people going through your program are achieving that outcome. So with Spear, the outcome we were trying to get to was that young people would be in work or education 12 months after they finished the program, which when we started, the longest measure of any of the other people in the field was 6 weeks. It's changed since then. And consistently 75% of young people who start will complete the Spear program will be in work 12 months later, which we're like, it's worth you entrusting your time to us. We will actually make a difference for you as a beneficiary. And it's worth giving us your money, because we will get the outcome that you're essentially paying for with your donation. So that's how I would evaluate.
Yeah. And I guess that's how you measured impact with Spear. And I guess it's like testimonies as well. It's like testimonials from people who have gone through your program. I mean, we were talking earlier, after this, you're going to go and meet someone who came through your program 10 years ago, and now he's working in the city. He's working at Citibank. And I think that's like so cool.
He's done so well.
Yeah. That's really interesting. Like,
he drives a Maserati now.
Oh, wow.
Definitely paid more than I am. I'm thrilled for him.
Yeah.
He's amazing.
That is funny. Oh, so cool. And I mean, 21 years is a long time. So you co-founded it. Was it, did you found or did you co-found it?
I co-founded it with an amazing man called Tom Jackson, who is definitely the brains behind the operation. He's got an extraordinary gift for imagining how the world could be a better place. And he's got a truly entrepreneurial spirit. That's awesome. He was an amazing partner to work with on that.
No, I'm sure. And then, after that, just you were the CEO of the charity from the get-go?
Yeah,
That,
we led it
over time?
together in the final 5 years. Yeah, I was CEO.
Nice.
So
it's a long time, 21 years.
Yeah.
It's like your baby in many ways.
Yeah.
And just like kind of seeing it grow and seeing all the impact. But I'm sure along the way there were loads of challenges.
One or two.
One or two challenges. It would be great if you could speak into that. Like what were some of the challenges that you found in leading that for 21 years?
I mean, the glorious thing about that job actually was that the challenges changed every year. The amazing thing about building an organization is that it just never gets dull, because if it's growing, then the challenges are so different, and therefore you're learning consistently throughout. I think the two personally most challenging moments, about a year into the first, took a year to set up, a year into running the first program, which was exhausting.
Yeah.
Like, we really didn't know what we were doing. As all good startups, you're like learning as you go. And we were frustrating young people as much as we were helping them. And they were frustrating us back. And I was absolutely exhausted. I got a grumbling appendix. Basically, after every course, I'd have a grumbling appendix for a weekend, wondering whether I should go to hospital. I mean, it was really stressful. Wow. But at the end of that year, we realized, no, we have produced something that really works. And one of our trustees, amazing venture capitalist, who we were fortunate enough to have on our board, said, "How's it going?" And I said, "Yeah, I think we've cracked it. I think it's working. Young people are actually getting jobs, and that's the goal. We didn't really know whether we could do it, and turns out we can." And he said, "So do you want to give up and go home now?" I said, burst into tears. I went, "I'm really tired." Yeah. And he said, "It's always at the point at which you get to your breakthrough that actually the adrenaline sort of goes and the exhaustion kicks in." But even having someone who said, "Don't worry, this is normal," was really helpful in keeping going. And then probably 10 years in, I think from running really hard at building it, I was really tired. Yeah. And for me, the way that comes out is I just get emotional, and I was sort of crying in every meeting, good or bad. And eventually I took a few weeks off and literally just watched The West Wing back to back in bed for 3 weeks. Sometimes I was like, I was broken.
Marathon.
And then at that point, I just had to work out, okay, I can't run at this pace in the same way anymore. And I just had to reframe how I structured my week and how I managed my time. And again, we had another trustee who'd also set up a business who was like, there comes a point where you've actually got to understand that you've shifted from startup to scale up, and the way in which you work needs to change if you're going to sustain it. So personally, they were the challenges. There were all kinds of other, we nearly ran out of money in 2008. And, when good people leave, it's always really painful. And, there are challenges.
No, I'm sure many challenges. And I guess that is like that topic of burnout. And like, what would you say are some of the signs that someone is burning out?
Yeah, I think often what you notice first is a sort of spikiness. It depends. To be honest, it really depends on the personality. But certainly, I get a bit spiky, and and lacking in grace. And we'd get very defensive when asked questions, and just feel overwhelmed by how much was going on. So the physical way that would work out. I remember I'd even just come back from holiday with a massive horsefly bite on my leg. And I ended up in hospital with it. And they said, either this is an allergic reaction, in which case we'll send you home with some Piriton tonight, or it's an infection, in which case we'll keep you in overnight, because that could be quite serious, which meant I could lose my leg. It was quite serious. And I remember sitting there going, I slightly hope that they keep me in overnight, because then people will bring me things and look after me. And I was at that point, I thought, possibly I'm a bit at the point at which you sort of fantasize about being hospitalized, probably.
Yeah, you're like, okay, stop.
there's a sign there.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think it can start to come out with bad team behavior, and you'll feel it. And I remember thinking, oh, I haven't got time to think about that. I'll think about that when I go to bed tonight. And of course, then you lie awake thinking about all of those things.
And you get exhausted when you wake up because you have barely slept.
Yeah. So all of those things played out.
Yeah. And something you said that stood out to me is like something about like protecting your year, not just your everyday.
Yeah.
Does that link in with like, protecting yourself from burnout? Like, can you speak into that? And what does that mean? Yeah.
So I think, in this country, we get such generous holiday time, like 20 to 25 days, which seems, we think that's nothing, but you go to the States and they get 10.
Hardcore.
But I used to go, right, I need to measure that out over time. So I'm going to take 5 days here and 3 days here. And actually, I just never recovered. And I think the thing that I learned in that season is once a year, I just need to go away. I need to be off work for 2 weeks, disengage, regroup, sleep a lot. Yeah. And then actually I can keep going for quite some time. But I think I used to think that little breaks frequently was the way to do it. And over time I worked out, no, a couple of really long breaks are the big game changer.
Yeah.
Yeah,
it's really, and it's like practical as well. Because even for the person listening to this, like thinking about, okay, if they're a university student or in their first job, young professional, it's like mapping out your year and like like intentional rest periods.
Yeah.
And we had, again, like something else we talked about was like Gen Z, how your generation looks at our generation with like perplexity, because I think we're so obsessed with like being healthy and getting our 8 hours sleep every night, which is not, I mean, I'm guilty, like I'm very guilty of that.
Yeah.
But do you think like there are two sides of that spectrum of like, we're so either obsessed with like rest or like either obsessed with like the hustle and grind? Like what are you thinking when you look at us?
Yeah. I mean, may I say I've got huge admiration for Gen Z.
Yeah.
I think
that's good.
A lot of
glad you like us.
A lot of, when we talk about healthy culture, I think a lot of the sort of Gen Z, what gets called entitlement, is like actually, I think we'd like to be managed well.
Yeah. Yeah.
And my generation just tolerated bad management. I've been very fortunate in my management over the years, but I know lots of people who haven't had that. So actually, I've got huge admiration for Gen Z. But it is interesting. I mean, it was fascinating working with a team that was largely millennial stroke Gen Z. And increasingly, as time went on, you get to lunch. We had a big lunch table in the middle of the office, and out came the quinoa and avocado.
Oh, classic, and the chickpea.
I was like, oh my gosh, in my day, we'd all run off to McDonald's and, come back. Or
fast food,
at best, it was Pret, it's like, and all this sort of homemade batch cooking, and everyone's off to yoga and sleeping 8 hours. And I was like, oh my gosh, we just lived a very unhealthy version of that. And I think there's so much to be said for that. I mean, we know so much more about health, right? So isn't it amazing that this generation is really picking that up? I suppose the flip side of that is you can end up sort of worshipping healthy life slightly when actually, and boundary your life so heavily around making sure that you get 8 hours sleep and you're eating well and you're exercising every day and all of those things, which are important. And actually, some of the really exciting times in work are when you are pushing together for a really hard deadline and you're creating something that you can be really proud of at the end of that. And that sometimes requires you to be in the office till 8:30, 9 o'clock. I'm not advocating for 2 a.m, but once a year, that's okay. And I think sometimes the Gen Z health boundaries can actually rob you of that sense of achievement, of pushing for something. This, in the same way as you get a sense of achievement by managing to climb Kilimanjaro, that requires an extra push of effort.
Great.
You can get that in your daily life through work if you are pulling together for something that you think is going to count for your organization. And so I think that there's life is full of tensions, right? And I think that tension we got wrong as a Gen Xer. I think we got wrong in just submitting to the kind of, come on, let's just work harder, grind. I think there's a risk that Gen Z, in a sort of pendulum swing, is going to overcook the boundary health stuff. There's only so healthy you can be.
Yeah.
And
one thing that I would love you to talk on is you're going to companies and you teach all about organizational health. But how do you know if a company, like if you're going through the interview process, how do you know if a company is healthy? It's quite a big, but like
it's, and I would say, I think that's the most important question you can be asking. As you've got to remember when you're applying for jobs that they're buying, you're selling your services, you're also committing a significant proportion of your life over to this organization. So thinking about this stuff is super important. So I'm now working for the Table Group, and the way, which is about organizational health, and the way that we would think about organizational health. If you think that there are sort of two sides to the way an organization works, and that's sort of smart and healthy, smart in the American sense. And the smart stuff is, do you have the best marketing director and the best finance director, like intellectual smarts? And then the healthy side is about team cohesion and clarity. Like, is this a team that gets on and can trust each other? And are they really clear on what this organization is trying to achieve? Because the benefits you get from those two things are a reduction in politics and an increase in the pace at which you can move, which is increasingly becoming important commercially.
Yeah.
But I think when you're being interviewed, you always want to make sure you meet your manager. And what you want to get is a sense of, do you think but you could trust this person? Do you think they will trust you? Do you get a sense from walking around the organization that there is a lot of fear in the building and a lot of subservience, or a sense of camaraderie and togetherness? And if it's the latter, I would go for it almost regardless of what it's doing, because that would be my priority, and that's going to be a much more successful business. And so I think looking out for the way people speak about one another.
That's important. The culture and how people treat each other.
It sort of evidences whether or not it's a high trust organization or not. And I think asking those questions, by the way, always have a question at the end of an interview.
That's good to know.
But asking questions like, I've been looking at your website, and from what I can see about your culture, it is la la. Does that play out in real life? Or tell me, what's it like to work here? And what do you love and not love about working here? Will give you a lot of clues about whether that organization is healthy.
Yeah, that's really good. And last but not least, the transactional analysis that we spoke about last week. Can you speak onto that? And what does that mean in the workplace for a young person?
Yeah. So this is a model that we were talking about last week, which was created by a psychoanalyst called Eric Berne in the 1950s. And I think it's a really, really interesting framework for thinking through all of our interactions, both at home and work. And to be honest, it's more about mindset than anything. But he basically said that we operate in 3 ego states, was the language he used, which is the parent and the adult and the child. And obviously, when you're a parent, the way that you engage with your child is sometimes controlling, get away from the oven, or nurturing. Darling, you look so pretty in that. And as children, we might respond to that in a, you can't tell me what to do, rebellious child, or thank you, daddy. It's like, I will do whatever you tell me to do. And that is entirely appropriate when you are a parent or a child. But the challenge as you transition into adulthood is you've got to get into the adult voice. And all of us and I mean all of us of whatever age, get stuck sometimes in those parent-child dynamics. Yeah. So if you think of a difficult or conflict conversation you've been in, the chances are one of you is in parent, I've got the power and you don't, and the other one is child, you've got the power and I don't, but you can't tell me what to do, meaning you can absolutely tell me what to do. Mm-hmm. And the challenge is getting to the adult position. And this is all about, this is about tone as much as it is, even more so actually than words. But tone and body language is like, how do you get into that adult position where you're essentially, and I think the trick to getting into an adult position, particularly in a conflict conversation, is to name rather than express emotion. So you don't dodge emotion or the discussion of it, but you say, I'm feeling a bit frustrated now.
Yeah.
And can you tell me what's going on for you? So name the emotion and ask a question. And questions are such an adult way of conversing. And so I think flexing the muscle of being able to ask questions, but asking them in a spirit of genuine curiosity rather than, why did you do that? Is such an important skill for navigating life. And I think the wonderful thing about that, particularly as you're entering the job market where you can feel like I have no power, is it sort of takes back some of the authority and agency that you've got of, actually, I've got choices that I'm making here and I don't have to strut about that. I don't need to be a bit sort of angsty about it, but I have got agency and that's the spirit in which I'm coming.
Yeah. That's such a helpful model. And I think that just applies in every area of your life. And what are you reacting? Are you reacting from emotion or are you reacting from that like adult voice?
Yes.
As like being self-aware alongside being a good questioner, being good at asking questions, I think is such an important thing to learn. So helpful, so helpful. And the question that we always ask to end the interview is, if you were to give one piece of advice for someone in their 20s, in their career, just in life, in career development, what would yours be?
Controversially, I think there's a lot of chat about sort of follow your dreams and passions. I think it's almost impossible to know what your dreams and passions are before you get going. So I would say, give it your best guess. I thought I wanted to work in marketing. I categorically didn't, but I thought I did. Do the closest thing to what you think it might be, and you will learn whether it is or isn't the thing you want to do. But while you're doing it, you will learn so much about what gives you life. And then you just keep pursuing the things that you're good at and the things that give you energy. But I've seen so many 20-somethings get paralyzed by, I've got to know what my passion and my dream is.
Follow your passion.
Oh my gosh, I'm still not there.
I think it's impossible, really.
And you only really work that out as you get going. So do something.
Do something. Don't stay still. Do something.
Yeah.
Oh, I love that. Jo, thank you so much.
Such a pleasure.
All that you shared. So much gold. So I loved everything that you shared. So thank you so much for coming onto the podcast.
Thanks for having me.
And for those listening, thank you so much for tuning in, and we'll see you next time. Bye-bye. Thank you for tuning in to the Big Smoke Chronicle podcast. We hope that you've enjoyed this episode. And if you enjoy the podcast and would like to support, remember to like and subscribe. We'll see you next time.